Uh, Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Drupal Europe. We are in the Drupal and technology track supported by Platform SH. And the topic of the current session is Autosave and concurrent editing in Drupal 8. My name is Hristo Chonov. I'm senior software developer. I'm one of the official Drupal 8 core entity API maintainers. And according to Drupal cores, the top 6 core contributor for Germany. I'm the author and main maintainer of some conflict modules, under which are Autosave Form and the conflict module, which I'm going to present in the current session. I work for a small but great company based in Frankfurt, Germany. Its name is Biologis Genetic Information Management. We do great stuff with Drupal. We contribute a lot, and we are currently on the 31 in the Drupal marketplace, according to yesterday, and according to the surveys made by Dries, we are among the 3 end users in the top 30 corporate sponsors for the past 2 years. Actually, a little bit longer, but the survey was made first in 2016. If you want to get to know us and learn more about us, please visit us at our booth. We are sponsoring the Drupal Europe as well. So I will start with the Autosave Form module. And as the name suggested, it's basically a module which provides continuous autosaving of a form. Especially we are talking about entity forms in our case. What we need to save is always the user input, but not only, we also need the current state of the form, which means, which represents all the interactions that the user has made with the form. For example, edit new fields, drag and drop new entities, all that stuff that alters the form and its state. We need that in order to be able to reconstruct the form when the user wants to retrieve an autosave state. The module works out of the box. There is no configuration needed, but there are some configuration options, little ones. For example, the interval, how often autosave is triggered, autosave submissions. By default, it's set to 60 seconds. If you want to, you can set it to 30 seconds. It's not a big deal. It's enabled for all content entity types out of the box. If you want to, you can limit it only to specific ones and to their bundles. We don't support config entity types at the moment. If you want to, and if there is the request for it, then I might add such a functionality. I just didn't have the time to do it. And didn't know that it's so much important. Just a little bit about the internals of the module, how it works. If you don't understand it, it's not bad. Just ignore that slide. How Autosave works is it has to decorate the form builder of Drupal in order to prevent a lot of the custom, contrib, and other functionality that's added on top of a form when it's submitted, like entity validation, hook invocations. The reason for it is that we speed up the autosave submissions. Usually, if we don't do this, an autosave submission might take up to 1 second, but currently it takes just a couple of milliseconds, like 30, 40 milliseconds, which is also the idea, to save server processing time as well, and to prevent altering the state of the form in any way. Additionally, we have to take care of not updating the build ID, because how Drupal works is when we have AJAX submits, it updates the build ID in order to support multi-step forms. And we have to take care of not breaking that. So when there is an autosave submission, we create autosave states. An autosave state is per user. So if a couple of users independently are editing the same entity form, all they have independent autosave states. The autosave state, like I said before, contains the user input and the state of the form so that we can reconstruct it. When an autosave submission is triggered, we don't always create a new autosave state. We create a new autosave state only in case there have been changes made compared with the previous autosave state. This makes it possible to implement a backend forward functionality on top of the autosave module. When an entity form is submitted, there are two cases that we have to consider. The one is when the conflict module is enabled. I will come later to it. And the other is when the conflict module is not enabled. When the conflict module is not enabled, then all the autosave states for the current entity among our users, among all their sessions, will be deleted. Why? Because even if we don't delete them, and even if the user is able to resume from where he left, she left, it will be impossible to merge the conflicts later or to save the form itself. It's just how the Drupal core works out of the box. And if the conflict module is enabled, then we just delete the autosave states of the current form session, only of the current form session. So, a couple of limitations, at least currently. We support entity forms only defined through the entity form default in the route. We don't support entity forms placed on the controller and form defaults. The reason for that is that if you use controller and form, you might place multiple entity forms on the same page, and then when an autosave submission is triggered, we cannot really identify to which form exactly the submission belongs to, and some stuff might get mixed up. It is possible to enable it through custom code, sure. So, but I guess that's the rare case that you have define a form, entity form to controller, and you have multiple entity forms. So I think it's really sufficient to support only the entity form route. Some of the future tasks that I want to implement is to make use of the browser's local storage in order to make it possible to create autosave states even if there is no internet connection, and additionally we can just spare the server processing time and the additional bandwidth, which is not needed. Well, there is one limitation of this, that you cannot have autosave states between different browsers, so it might make sense only in a couple of systems. Additionally, at some point, we might decide to create autosave states in revision branches. That is something that might come to core at some point. But if you want to know more about it, then come and talk to me personally. And for sure, your ideas and requests. Currently, there is one request to support autosave on new entity forms. That means not something that's already saved, but new. And I'm going to work on it later today. It will be a little bit complicated, but it is possible. So I'll show a little demonstration. So here I have the autosave enabled. And when I go on a web page, then we see here down that I've made it that it runs every 5 seconds in order to fasten up the demonstration. So each time autosave is triggered, you can see it down that it runs. With a little bit CSS, you can disable it if you want to. So when I make a change on the web page, for example, I change the title to test, and I change here the cooking time from 50 to 60 minutes. And now I wait until an autosave submission has been triggered. And then I can leave the form and go back to it. Then it should be possible that I can restore my changes. So I go to edit, and then I get this pop-up. And I have two options. The one is to resume the editing and start from where I've left the last time. and the other is to discard all the changes and start over. So if I resume the editing, you can watch the title, for example, is going to change, and the cooking time should change from 50 to 60 minutes again. Oops, sorry. And that's what happens. So I have now I have restored the form, and I even can save it for sure. Yes. So you see, everything is correctly saved. So what I've explained, that when the conflict module is not there, that autosave states will be deleted. I can show it right now. I changed the title in order to create, in order for an autosave state to be created, and then I go to another session of another user, and I will submit the form with some modifications. Oops. It's the same form, right? And then I go here, and the user gets a notification that that entity, that form has been saved elsewhere, and therefore the autosave submission, autosave itself is being disabled because there is no possibility to save it afterwards. Even if I save it now, I will get the message from the Drupal core that it's not possible because the entity has been saved elsewhere. That's where the conflict module comes into the game in order to prevent that, to make it possible to have concurrent edits of the same entity form. So then we go to the conflict module. Like I already told it during the autosave overview, the conflict module is there to make it possible for multiple users to edit the same entity form at the same time and to make submissions. We support all content entity types. It doesn't matter if they're revisionable or not. We just keep track of the state of the entity at the point at which the form has been initially created. That's why we don't care if it's revisionable, what is the revision ID, and so on. We take the entity and save it in that state. Like with the autosave module, we have no support for config entity types, but it might be added. So the whole functionality works mainly as an entity builder, which on entity build performs a three-way comparison between the field values of the current form display. So it means only the values that are shown in the current form, only the fields only there being compared. And for that, we need the field values of three entities. The one is the initial one that has been used to generate the form. The second is the one that is being generated by the current entity form. And the third one is the entity from the storage, the entity that probably has been saved in the meanwhile by another user with some modifications. And by comparing these three entity versions, we can decide what kind of conflict we have there. Is it a conflict that's occurred, is it a change that has been made only in the newest entity that's saved in the storage? Is it a change that has been made only by us? And that's important in order to solve the conflicts later. So for the comparison, currently, we just use the normal equals method of fields. But I thought that it might be useful to provide a way to override that comparison for some complicated fields, field types. And you can define a plugin for a field comparator, and you can you can limit it to specific entity type ID, to specific bundle of that entity type, to specific field type only, or to a specific field name as well. But usually you will not need to do this. It should work just out of the box for the most field types. So when the form is submitted, we try to merge as much as possible automatically. This means that if we have fields that are not enabled on the current entity form, but have been changed to another user in another entity form where the another user had access to those fields, then we will merge them. There is no reason to show conflicts there. Fields that the current user doesn't have access to. They might be enabled in the entity form, but the user doesn't have access to and cannot edit them. That's why we take the values from the storage, the newest values from the storage. Translatable fields of other translations. If we're editing the German translation, it doesn't make sense to show any kind of conflicts, and we cannot for other translations. The entity metadata that gets updated automatically each time an entity form is saved, including the change timestamp of the entity, its revision ID, and the revision timestamp. Fields which are changed only in the current entity form or only in the storage. Currently, we don't consider this as a conflict. It means field A is changed only in the current form, and field B has been changed in the storage. We make an automatic merge. There might be some implications doing this. I'll come to that later. And currently, there is only one case where we consider it as a conflict. If a field has been changed in the current form and in the storage as well, compared to the initial entity being used to generate the form. We use an entity handler for that case, the content entity conflict handler, which you can overwrite if you want to, and you have to register it on the entity type itself. But usually, you don't have to do this. When there are conflicts, we need some user interaction. I've implemented one for demonstration purposes only. That's why I'm going to need your help, your suggestions, your feedback, how it should look like, what you think about it, and so on. I can imagine that there are a couple of ways of providing a conflict resolution. The one is dialogue-based. It means that when the form is submitted and there are conflicts, then there is a pop-up and the user can see the differences between the changes and solve them in that dialogue directly. The other one would be inline-based. It means that after the form is submitted, the user sees the same page again, but underneath each of the fields where there have been conflicts detected, there is a diff shown, or there is probably a three-way view of each of the versions. So, or probably we might need some mixture of both approaches. Unfortunately, I'm not an UI expert. I am neither a UX expert, so I would really appreciate help from somebody from that direction. So here I'm going to show a demonstration about that. I go to the edit page of an entity form. And then, let's say, I change the preparation time from 11 minutes to 20 minutes on the right. Change the title to test. And on the left side, I change the preparation time to only 1 minute and change the title to A, just A. So now I save the form on the right. And usually now, if I try to save that one, Drupal would prevent this. But we have overwritten all the Drupal mechanisms. And now we get a message that there have been conflicts detected, that the form has been saved in the meanwhile. And the user has, like with Autosave, two options again. The one would be to discard everything and start over. And the other would be to resolve the conflicts. So here's the inline solution that I've implemented. Don't judge me. It looks awful, I know. But it's only for demonstration purposes currently. The automatic merge works, and there is no UI needed for it. I will show it afterwards. And that's how it works. For example, there was a conflict in the recipe name, in the title, and we see the current version, the version that we had when we initialized the form, and the version that's now in the entity storage, that's saved in the entity storage. And we have to force the user that he agrees that she agrees that the changes have been considered and that the manual merge has been performed. The same for the preparation time. Just an overview how it looks like. And now if I want to have my changes or I want something completely different, I can write something different, for example, B, and the preparation time will be set to 2 minutes, and then I can save the form. And we have here B, and we have here the preparation time set to 2 minutes. So that's about the inline. And when we have automatic mergers, for example, I'm setting the preparation time to 3 minutes on the right side, and on the left side, I increment the cooking time by 1 minute, and then I save both forms, one after another, and this one. And now we had the automatic merge performed on the fields that have been changed independently. So there are some open questions regarding the automatic merge of independent fields, like in that case. And it is that in some cases, for example, when considering a medical application, changing the value of a field B might be the decision about changing that field value might be made based on the current value of another field, field A, exactly like in this case. So it means that if field A has been changed by another user in the meanwhile, and we perform an automatic merge, it might be completely wrong in the case of medical applications. Other cases as well. So probably what we would need is a merge strategy, which is configurable on per entity field level, or field type, or something like this. That will not be hard to implement. I just need your feedback if you think that I should consider this and implement that feature. And about the manual conflict resolution UI and UX, we can talk about it. How do we prefer it? Do we prefer this three-way view, version overview, or do we prefer an inline div, where you can see in red, for example, something that has been removed, and in green, something that has been added to a text, which makes it a little bit complicated when we have complex fields, like entity references and so on. And probably for that case, we might need both solutions depending on the field type. So that's are the questions, and that are still open. And I guess we can use that time here if somebody has some suggestions and feedback about it. If you want to, I can still further test on the live demonstration. Yes, please? I don't know if there is a microphone here. Is it working? Okay. Here you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited for this model. I mean, it looks very cool. Thank you about it. A few things. First, I'm using conflict module without autosave module together with workspaces, the module that recently came in the core, and for our project, but it's still not ready for contribution, we built. From the deploy module, there is a dashboard which is showing all the conflicts that you have on the website, so you can solve them at any time. And we built like an option to click on, to see the 2 pages, the 2 revisions of the pages, so the user at least can be able to see quickly what are the, from a nice interface, how the pages looks like, and if they change a lot, it can be decided which should be the current page and to pick up one of the pages, because the workspaces conflict solving works per page, not on a field base. But okay, but but that's something related with the UI. Something that we were considering building is using diff module. Diff module provides out of the box different options to make a diff on an HTML level, of a rendering, of an array. So that's something that we definitely can consider contributing back. And the question is how the module works with paragraphs. Because many of the site builders, they use one content type, one paragraph, and everything is this field, and this field will conflict, I guess.
Okay, so I haven't tested that conflict module with paragraphs, but we've tested in production with something that's pretty similar to paragraphs. We have also on the inline entity reference inline module, which is doing pretty the same stuff as paragraphs, and there are different cases you have to consider. The module now is currently implemented that with a little bit of custom code, you can add that inline functionality also to the nested inline forms. It works also out of the box. You just have to write 2 lines of code just to call a form author function on the inline forms, and that's everything. Then the inline solution should work out of the box with just 2 lines of code. I can show you afterwards. And the other possibility that might be better when you have a lot of nested inline forms, it will be dialog based, so that you go from one entity to the another. You have the conflict of the whole entity in that dialog, and then you can scroll to the next entity after you've solved the conflicts of the first entity. So it's still a UX question, and it depends on how big the form is. If you have a form of 100 entities, the inline diff might not be that good of an idea.
I have another suggestion to the conflict module. I think another important thing is that the 2 users who are working right now on the same node, they should know from each other. They should know there's another person, this is the name of the person is working on the same node too. And so maybe the conflict can be avoided by, so let first this guy make his changes, and after I can do my changes, something like this. So the communication between the people should be supported.
Okay, there is another module that you can use for that case, and it's called Content Log, which we also use in some cases. What happens is you can configure it that it logs the current entity form only on translation level. And when you go to the edit page, then the user gets a notification that that page has been logged by another user. So there is another module already doing that. It's anti-concurrent editing.
So I tested it actually with paragraphs, multilingual, and it works nicely. But I just opened the bug that basically the form state.
I can't hear you that well. I'm sorry.
The form, you can hear it now?
Yeah. Now, yes.
So the form state is restored, and if you do like field configuration chains, widget settings or something, you're getting really the old version of the previous save, which can lead to completely different results saved. Like I'm expecting changing widget settings or so that everyone is affected, and suddenly we're restoring something that is completely outdated. That may be leading to validation, like non-validated, outdated save states.
Yeah, you are right. I completely forgot about it, that it's true, it's possible that in the meanwhile, the field settings, the widget settings, and so on, that they have been changed. And in that case, I don't think that there is anything that we can do about it, but to discard and remove all the, to make it impossible to save. Because like you said it, even if we save, it might be something that's invalid.
I had another question, kind of the opposite of the paragraph question. If you have a big body field with just text, and two people edit it concurrently, but they don't edit the same part of the text. I make like a little PHP library that can merge text. So how would I implement this? Like how would I integrate it? Can I like make a conflict as a non-conflict anymore, or you know, when the merge can happen, like the git merge sort of?
So you mean that actually, like in the Git case, that the merge can be made automatically, you mean, because
Yeah, exactly.
it's a text? Okay, that's something that I've talked with Joachim yesterday. He suggested some library by Google, which can make that, and we can use it and implement it as well, that we try to merge also on field level, on the text level, if it's possible, and if it's not, then we can show the changes, but we still have to consider, do we want the confirmation of the user that he agrees to the merge that have resulted, even if the merge resulted without any implication.
Yeah, of course. Like I really like the idea that you kind of like ask for confirmation about it, because also like you said, there could be fields that are related, then that you should always be changed together. But
yes,
yeah, so.
That's definitely something that we can and we should do, actually, especially for text fields. Yes, right. Thank you.
My question is perhaps something similar to paragraph.
I can't hear. Sorry.
My question is perhaps something similar with the utilization of entity browser. Have you tried what Autosave do when you another form come in a pop-up?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Entity browser.
Yes.
Have you tried to use it with Autosave in
yes,
the same?
we've been using it and it works out of the box. Yes.
Okay.
We are using it in production and it works.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
At least before I've made some changes to the module. So don't judge me if there is a bug now. You can just submit a report and then I'll take a look at it again.
Hey, how's it going? Do you think the plumbing of the conflict module is written in a way that it sort of like could be dropped into core or brought into core?
I hope so.
If there was some kind of use case.
In the last couple of days, in order to make it to make a presentation with the inline div, I've written pretty bad code, but I'm going to make it better the next days. And since the first line of code of both modules, actually, I've tried to write them professionally with the intention to bring them to core, or at least to make the feature request of bringing them into core, because I personally think as well that is a must-have feature for the core autosave and conflict as well.
Any more questions? Or?
When you create a new node, it's the autosave is not working because it's
currently not.
It's related on the node ID. But you are planning on implementing the local storage. Could that be used for new nodes that's created?
Yes, that could be used for new nodes that are created, but also we can use the database storage as well. It's just a little bit complicated because we don't have the ID, and in that case we have to explicitly know that you are, for example, on the node at article page and not on the node at page, because we have to consider the bundle as well. And if we have the ID, we have that implicitly.
Okay. So
but the browser local storage can be used for that as well.
Is that something you plan to implement? Or
I would really like to do it, at least for fun.
Yeah, okay.
Just a suggestion, because you know, I noticed like this message saving every 5 seconds. I mean, and actually it makes sense
I've
to be
made
very
it
quick.
only for the session.
Yeah, but it should be, I mean, it should be as recent as possible, but the thing here is maybe, I mean, data that you are posting, you know, maybe you can hash it to store it as a hash in the local storage or somewhere else, and every time before to post it, to compare the hash once again, and if the hash is the same, don't post it. I mean, and it will be very simple. I mean, but
Makes sense.
I can help with this one for sure. I mean,
Makes sense, sure, yes.
Anyone else?
Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, I would like to invite you tomorrow to the contribution day, and you can meet me. I will be around all the time. Remember the green point. You can ask me and approach me each time you want to. And I will be happy to talk with you further about the module and further implementations and tasks, feature requests, and so on. Thank you for being here. I'm surprised that so many people came. My big first event. 78 hast du gezählt.